Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, why you should feel optimistic headed into Game 3 for the Wolves. Was this the Lakers' best shot in Game 2? It's all coming next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Thursday, everybody. Kind of unpacking everything that happened from Game 2. The Wolves lost by 9 to the Lakers, but I gave some reasons for optimism on Wednesday's show, the post-game podcast, but today I'm going to go all in on why I actually feel pretty good about the Timberwolves' chances moving forward in Game 3 and beyond, really, in this series. After we've seen how the first two games have unfolded, I think there's not only reasons for optimism, but reason to believe the Wolves are in a pretty good spot to win this series potentially in less than 7 games. I think that's completely on the table. I want to break down a couple of things here on the show today. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to have Jack Borman, of course, our postcast analyst who did the show, the postcast from the first 2 games in the series. I'll be live with the postcast with him Friday night as well. But he'll be on Friday's Locked On Wolves episode, so looking forward to that. But a lot to get to on today's show. A big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app, on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Of course, you can also subscribe to the daily newsletter. They'll hit your email inbox every day, Monday through Friday at LockedOnDaily.com. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Again, LockedOnDaily.com. All right. Let's talk about why I feel good and why I think the Timberwolves should feel good heading to Game 3 of the series. A lot of things to get into, really. And I think number one for me is it possible that this was the Lakers' best shot? Not like, what I mean by that is, how much better could the Lakers play the Wolves? And I'm going to immediately, before I make the case, I'm going to argue the Lakers' point, why they would say this isn't true. Well, Austin Reeves only was 0 of 6 from 3. LeBron James was 1 of 5. Rui Hachimura did not make a 3 in this game. Luka Doncic was only 2 of 8 from 3. So you could argue, well, hey, Austin Reeves should score more than 16 points. He also didn't play well in the first game. We'd expect these guys to contribute more. That's the obvious counterpoint. I don't know what the other counterpoints would be if you're a Lakers fan. I think actually only scoring 94 points in Game 2 and what they have 95 in Game 1, that should be a little bit disconcerting, maybe a lot disconcerting. The Lakers are probably going to shoot better than 21% from deep moving forward, just like the Wolves weren't going to shoot 50% from deep like they did in Game 1. But that's really the only thing, because here's the deal. The Lakers completely adjusted how they were handling their offense in Game 2. They were just hell-bent on creating as many mismatches as they should, which isn't inherently a bad thing, or as many mismatches as they could, I should say. It's not inherently a bad thing, but it is when you're obsessed with attacking those isolation opportunities. Because there was a very little side-to-side ball movement for the Lakers in this game. The Timberwolves defense, I thought, outside of the onslaught early in the game, which was, again, just kind of a flurry of mismatches and then offensive rebounds and just it wasn't really driven by strong ball movement. And at least the last 3 quarters, the Lakers scored 34 in the first quarter. They didn't score more than 24 in any quarter the rest of the game. They had only 13 points in the fourth quarter. And the Wolves really settled in defensively. I thought Minnesota's ability to defend in space, both when they were playing straight up and when the Lakers did force a switch, I thought it was all really good. I thought the Wolves scrambled and late switched really well. I thought they rotated to the backside fairly well. The Lakers didn't get that many open 3-point attempts. They had a couple. There were a couple of Gabe Vincent attempts, one that he knocked down that was a tough shot, one that he airballed. Rui, I think one of his 2 is a pretty nice driving kick, open opportunity that he missed. There's going to be a handful over the course of the game. But I thought the Wolves did a good job of defending the 3-point line. And I mean, there's all sorts of stats floating around out there about Luka Doncic, and I retweeted one, or a couple actually. I think one from David Locke, of course, of Locked On Jazz, and then also our guy Jack Borman Tuesday night, that were, I think Rudy gave up one bucket when guarding Luka. I think Luka against switches, or Rudy and Nas one-on-one gave up like combined a couple of buckets. Rudy gave up the one to Austin Reeves that was a key one late in the game, but I think that was the only basket other than the really early Luka fadeaway that he hit from 10, 12 feet on the left side of the lane in the first quarter. Like, Rudy did pretty good. Go back and watch all those possessions, and I don't need to cite all those numbers for you, but trust me, he did really good. And so did Nas Reid. Like, the Lakers were hunting these switches to their detriment, because then they were so focused. And in Luka's case, he was so focused on creating this, viral moment, or this moment for the crowd where he just roasts the 4-time defensive player of the year, that he only did it to the tune of one bucket the entire game. Rudy more than held his own, and it was a detriment to the Lakers because Luka just the ball never really hopped around the perimeter in possessions that Luka started. And I know he had 9 assists in the game, but he also had 4 turnovers. He also was only 2 of 8 on threes, and, did so much of his damage, as he often does, from the free throw line. I thought the Wolves did an overall pretty good job on Luka Doncic. Not as good as game 1, but Luka also just played better than he did in game 1. And I think it's possible that Luka could still go nuclear and have possible to likely that he has 1 to 2 more really, really solid games that are even better than what he did in game 2. But the overall idea that the Lakers and LeBron did the same thing. LeBron, it was isolation attack after isolation attack. And it wasn't even always switches. Like, it was LeBron attacking Nas one-on-one, and he got a couple of buckets, but Nas stopped him a couple of times. And in general, that is a winning strategy for your defense. The Timberwolves will allow other teams to go one-on-one in isolation against them all day long, because they have arguably the best group of, switchable 1 through 8 defenders in the league. I mean, obviously OKC would have something to say about that. Houston maybe could have something to say about that. But I'm saying, like, Mike Conley, obviously, Rudy Gobert, like, there's some limitations there, right? They can't guard all 5 ideally, but the Wolves are comfortable to a point allowing Rudy to be on an island and guard in isolation on a switch. And he more than holds his own more often than not. Turns out outstanding offense beats great defense. That's just how it works. Like, you're going to win every now and again. Luka has that one highlight from this game, and the 5, 6, 7 times he isolated on Rudy and got a shot off. There were other times where he did kick the ball out and it caught the Wolves in rotation. But again, it didn't kill the Wolves. The Lakers shot 21% from 3 in this game. So I guess there is some, like, if the Wolves do the exact same thing and the Lakers shoot a little better from 3, that's a reasonable, like, that could happen. But even then, you're talking still less Luka scoring, and you're still relying on, if you're the Lakers, Dorian Finney-Smith and Rui Hachimura and LeBron James, who's not a great 3-point shooter at this stage. You're relying on all these guys to hit these catch-and-shoot threes. And that the Wolves aren't going to, clog the passing lanes and get transition opportunities going the other way, which we'll talk about here in just a second. So I think the Lakers took a step backwards offensively. They scored 1 point less in game 2 than they did in game 1. And it's not like they were hanging onto the ball and trying to run clock at the end of the game. I mean, this was just a strong defensive performance by Minnesota and a very mediocre offensive performance by the Lakers. I just don't know where else they're going to turn for offense. They're not a high pick and roll team. Or I should say they don't run pick and rolls at a massive rate, and they don't have the vertical stretching ability that, say, the Mavs of last year did. You don't have to worry about a Luka lob to a Derek Jones Jr. or a Derek Lively or a Daniel Gafford. You don't need to worry about that with this Lakers team. Jackson Hayes, as it turns out, as bad as he was in game 1, he was worse in game 2. He managed to play 1 whole minute longer. I know he was a +6, but that was more a function of just the onslaught at the very beginning of the game than anything else. So I think that's a positive sign for Minnesota. I want to talk about a couple other reasons why I feel like the Wolves could be trending upward over the next couple of games. We'll do that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. There's endless entertainment. Of course, we have multiple Amazon Fire TV sticks in our house, and there's more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes across your favorite subscribed services, such as Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. We have all of those on our Amazon Fire TV sticks. Better believe between myself, my wife, the kids, we're always watching something across there. And look, if you're into gaming, it's a great way to, if you're just starting to get into gaming, really, and no matter what, if you're into gaming, you game a lot, if you're just getting into it, you can use your Fire Stick 4K TV as a great option to play Xbox through the Fire Stick 4K on your TV. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices. That includes Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Okay. Other reasons to feel optimistic about where the Wolves are now. And really, I truly believe this Lakers offense, it's going to have to be all Luka. Like, that's where we're at this point. LeBron's not beating guys one-on-one. Like, that I can't underscore that enough. I would also say, well, the Timberwolves role players, and specifically Naz and Jaden, played just otherworldly games in game one. And I mentioned this toward the end of the show on Wednesday. I think it's unrealistic to expect Jaden and Naz to play like they did in game one. It's also unrealistic, if you're the Lakers, to expect them to play as poorly as they did in game two. Those guys are better than what they were in game two. Dante DiVincenzo is a lot better than what he was in game two. So if you're the Lakers, you got to worry about that. These guys aren't going to play that badly. And as I said after game one, the Wolves could have won game one without the crazy three-point shooting. They were that much better than the Lakers defensively. When the Lakers run offense, Wolves run defense. They got on a transition to the 225 fast break points in game one. It was like 5 fast break points in game two. And we'll talk more about that in a moment, but that's all interlinked, right? The Timberwolves role players are better than what they were in game two. And I wouldn't argue the same if I'm the Lakers. Like, I could see a Lakers fan saying, well, what about the Lakers? Like, what about, we talked about Austin Reeves only making well, Austin Reeves isn't a role player. Like, he's one of your big three if you're the Lakers. But like Dorian Finney-Smith, is he really going to score more than 7 points regularly? Jared Vanderbilt played 8 minutes. Gabe Vincent played 19 minutes and was fine. Jordan Goodwin played 7. I mean, the Lakers relied on that small 5-man lineup with Dorian Finney-Smith and Rui Hachimura and LeBron in the front court for the majority of the game. Like, that lineup played like 30 plus minutes together. Or 20, I think, around 30 minutes together. I don't know what other where else you're getting offense if you're the Lakers. I just don't. And if you're the Wolves, I mean, Dante scored 17 a game for the Knicks last year. Dante can score. Naz Reid won 6th Man of the Year last year and was actually, numbers-wise, better this year, but somehow wasn't a finalist just because everyone was worried about the other stuff and the Wolves won 7 less games. They're worried about, new guys, a little bit of fatigue there with Naz. So, like, the Wolves clearly have more depth and a better bench and a better additional scoring options. The only guys in the Wolves 8-man rotation that you're not going to sit here and say, oh, we're worried, they could score 20. It's Mike Conley, it's Rudy Gobert. And Rudy actually just did it a couple weeks ago, but you're not worried about him. And maybe Nikhil. But Dante, Naz, Ant, Julius Randle, those guys can all go for 20 plus and nobody would bat an eye. Less likely for Jaden, but he just did it in game one. I wouldn't expect him to do it again, but it's more likely Jaden McDaniels scores 20 plus than you're going to get 20 from Dorian Finney-Smith, who's playing 39 minutes anyway. He actually played more minutes than Jaden McDaniels in this game. So I think the Wolves role players and the fact that they are better than how they played in game two is very encouraging if you're a Timberwolves fan. Another element that I would highlight. Anthony Edwards has now seen the way the Lakers want to defend him. Game one, they just tried to play boxes and elbows. They tried to show him multiple bodies in the gaps. And it worked in the sense that Ant only scored 22 points on 22 shots, but he also had 9 assists and only 1 turnover. Game two, they switched more frequently, and they put 2 on the ball more often than they did in game one, more often than I think JJ Redick in a perfect world would like to deploy. It wasn't as good. And while he got going a little bit offensively in this game, he had the massive dunk, he had some nice threes. The playmaking was just not there for Anthony Edwards. And in part, it's because the Lakers not only were putting 2 on the ball, but they were taking the concept of, Ant and I think Julius Randle post-game both kind of said, yeah, it looked a little bit like a zone. And Ant talked about being a little confused by it, which is interesting that he was willing to say that. And maybe it's not a bad thing, because maybe the Lakers will be like, we'll do it again. And this is kind of my point, is that Ant now has this on film. And it was a bit of like a pseudo zone, almost a matchup zone, where we've seen teams do this. I don't think it was that different from what we've seen other teams do, which is load that side of the floor heavily against Ant. And if Ant gets himself too far toward the baseline or too far into the corner or too deep on the wing, he cuts off angles to make passes that can happen quickly. And if he tries to swing the ball to the other side of the floor, the Lakers have time to recover and contest that opposite corner three, or, shoot the gap or I should say, cover the opposite side gap, to the left of the lane. If the Wolves are trying to shoot the gap for a basket there, if Ant rotates the ball, I think the backside rotation, Ant dribbled himself into some tough spots. And if he maintains angles, if they want to put 2 on the ball outside the perimeter, which I don't think they do, but if they do, there's a lot more passing angles available for Ant. As soon as he puts the ball on the floor, if he tries to probe and then essentially dribbles into this gap help from the Lakers, that's when he cuts off angles. That's when, if the Wolves don't space properly around him, it's a no-win situation for the Wolves. And you had a couple of crazy Ant turnovers. You had a couple of crazy shots. You had a couple of shot clock violations, because a combination of a smart scheme from the Lakers and poor awareness for Ant, driving himself into some of those tough situations. I think the solve there is just, again, quicker decision-making. And I talked about this on Tuesday's show previewing game 2, was Ant was so quick and so decisive in game 1. And because the Lakers shifted their coverage just a little, he was less quick and less decisive in game 2. And my guess is, because it worked to an extent, the Lakers don't tweak that massively. So now Ant has it on tape. He can see what the Lakers were trying to do, and they can devise a way to beat that scheme. And maybe it is, instead of allowing Ant to end up in more isolations, it's more set play calls. I thought the Wolves did a really good job of that in game 1. They had a couple of very nice calls in game 2 that led to, there was an ATO that led to a missed 3-pointer from Ant. There was another one that led to a missed 2-pointer. They were both good play sets. He just missed the shot. I think more of that, more set play calls, which I know is not something Chris Finch has done a lot of, but against a defense like this, especially if the Wolves know what they're going to do, if they're going to do this pseudo zone thing, I think there's opportunity there for the Wolves to be a little bit more creative within their offense and generate some opportunities that don't include Anthony Edwards dribbling himself into a really tough spot. One more thing, rewinding just a little, related to Anthony Edwards, but also the role players. In game 1, Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards combined to score 52 points on 39 shots. Not ultra efficient, but efficient enough. And if you had told me before the game, hey, Randle and Edwards are going to combine for 52 on 39 shots, I would have felt okay about the Wolves' chances, because you figure everyone else is doing something. Well, no, everybody not named Julius Randle, Anthony Edwards scored 33 points on 40 shots. So well under 1 point per shot, and only 1 of 13 on 3-point attempts. 1 of 13 on 3-point attempts. That's not going to happen again. That's not going to happen with any level of frequency for the Wolves. I would not be overly concerned about that. Which is another reason to feel okay going into game 3. I want to hit a couple of other things related to Timberwolves offense and specifically transition, and then we'll get you ready here for the rest of the week. We'll do all that here next before we close the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Game Time, our title sponsors at Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. The Wolves are back home on Friday night for Game 3, of course. You can check out tickets over at Game Time. If you're looking for a last-minute deal, again, 60% off, up to 60% off buying last-minute for anything. Game 3 is obviously what I'd be focused in on. Maybe you want to go to a concert, comedy show, whatever's in town, theater, Saturday night. after you go to the Wolves game Friday night, you want to celebrate the Wolves' big Game 3 win. The all-in pricing that they have as well means no surprise fees at checkout, and what you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Okay, I alluded to transition earlier. The Timberwolves ran like crazy in game 1 compared to what they normally do, right? Like not as fast as how, it's not like how OKC plays, right? But the Wolves as a team were not a massive transition team during the season. In fact, they ran less frequently than the Lakers, believe it or not. The old, slow, unathletic Lakers. The Wolves only ran in the regular season only 13.4% of the time. That number was close to 20%. I think it was like around 19% in game 1. And game 2 was much closer. In fact, I think it was a little below what their season transition frequency is. Now, during the regular season, and I've said this before on the show, but I think it's important to reiterate, the Wolves are dead last in running off of defensive rebounds. They're not going to do that. Ant doesn't like to do it. They don't really push the pace. Rudy's not, that's not his thing. But running off of live turnovers, running off of opponent turnovers, Minnesota was actually 13th in the NBA. Not in frequency. Frequency was like 15th or 16th, but they were 13th in transition points per play. So the Wolves actually score in transition at a above league average rate when they do run. So if they pick their spots, if they're judicious about when they do run, then they can be effective. They can have an impact on the game. We talked about already 25 fast break points in game 1 for Minnesota. I think the Lakers had like 5 in game 1 or 6 maybe. The Wolves had 6 fast break points in game 2. The Wolves ended up with 6 steals in game 2, but I mean, that's going to be a huge catalyst, right? Is these live ball turnovers they can generate. And the defense I thought was pretty good, but it's harder to do that with all the isolation play that the Lakers were doing on the offensive end of the floor. That it's harder to generate turnovers if the other team is just playing in isolation. So that's an advantage to the Lakers. But again, the Wolves are comfortable with that. So if they can be a little more opportunistic, maybe it is doubling. If, depending on the situation, depending on who's on LeBron, maybe it's a late double to try and force a turnover that can lead to offense, easy offense going the other way to pick up some easy buckets. Again, this is a Wolves team that just scored 85 points in this game in game 2. So getting some easy buckets going the other way is going to be important. Getting some open 3-pointers in transition, getting some corner threes, getting some trail threes, getting some opportunities to possibly get to the free throw line in transition. I think there's a lot to be said for generating some additional transition opportunities. And I think it should be on the table against this Lakers team. Even if they're going to play in isolation, there's still going to be opportunities. During the regular season, the Lakers, they were middle of the pack in terms of turnover rate. It was around where the Wolves are. We saw Luka make a couple of really bad, there was one really terrible pass late in the game. I talked about this on Wednesday at the postgame pod that Luka made with the Wolves down 9 with 3 minutes left. And the Wolves got the steal, and then Ant immediately turned it over when LeBron stole it at midcourt. You can force Luka into some of those plays. You can force LeBron into some of those passes. LeBron was pretty fortunate with a couple of calls in this game, kind of flopping all over the place and just lost the ball sometimes, and he got a call. I mean, that if he doesn't get that call, that's a turnover. There were 2-3 of those between LeBron and Luka that ended up being foul calls that easily could have not been foul calls. So I think if the Wolves stay aggressive and physical defensively, there's going to be more fast break opportunities, hopefully, especially at home. And then that's going to be important to try and generate some additional, easier, low-hanging fruit offensive opportunities, whether it's at the rim, at the free throw line, or outside the arc. And then one last point, and this, I guess, is related to just overall optimism. Our guy Jack Borman posted late after the game on Tuesday night. The Timberwolves shot 21.1% on jump shots, not just threes. They were 20% on threes. 8 of 38, 21.1% on jump shots. They were 13 of 26 on layups, 50% at the rim. A team should be 80-something% at the rim. At the very least, 70-something%. 50%, as Jack said in his tweet, about as bad as it gets in the NBA. He's 100% right. And obviously the Wolves are to blame for that, but there's also some bad fortune. There's some variance there that's not necessarily going to happen again. So I think there are a lot of reasons for optimism. And actually on Friday's show, we're going to have Jack back on the show. He did the show last Friday to get you ready for the series. He was in LA. He was there in person. at crypto.com arena and got to see everything up close and personal. And we should have a good sense for the vibe of the team, for where things are headed for Game 3. We'll talk about his keys to Game 3. We'll talk about my keys for Game 3. That'll be Friday's show. And then also Friday night, I'm actually going to host the postcast. I'm going to fill in for Luke Gidman Friday night. So live after the game, I believe it's an 8:30 tip. So we're talking like 11:15, 11:30. Jack live from Target Center, myself. We're going to break down what's hopefully a Wolves win to get the Wolves to a 2-1 series lead. We'll talk about all that Friday night following Game 3 of Wolves-Lakers. That's all we got for you today here on the show. A big thank you for making the show your first listen every single day. Of course, Locked On Wolves is always free. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch on YouTube. You can watch on Locked On Sports Minnesota on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. And you can also subscribe to the daily newsletter. The Locked On Wolves newsletter will have you covered throughout the playoffs every step of the way. You can subscribe to the newsletter now for expert analysis, insider insights, and all the playoff action delivered straight to your inbox for free. It's not just notes from yours truly, although you'll get that. You'll also get some national NBA notes, get some other Wolves notes from around the internet. As a subscriber, if you subscribe between now and next Wednesday, April 30th, you'll be entered to win one of these three amazing prizes: a $2,500 Best Buy gift card, a $300 Game Time gift card, or a $200 Fanatics gift card. It's easy and free to enter. Simply subscribe between now and April 30th to be automatically entered to win. Don't miss a moment of the Wolves championship run. Join the Locked On Wolves newsletter today and experience the playoffs like never before. Subscribe today and enter to win by clicking the link in the description of the show. That's all we got for you today. Of course, Locked On Wolves is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.